Hello, everyone. Let's start. Then, first of all, welcome back to the B2B Future Forum series. Already know the third webinar. Great to have you here. In our previous sessions, we already talked about buyer expectations and revenue leakage. Today, we go one level deeper because in B2B growth, is rarely limited by demand and it's not limited by complexity. It's in many cases limited by architecture. As most of you might know, complexity is part of the game in B2B. The question more or less is now, is your system landscape built to scale with it, or does it fight against it? Here is a small overview on what we'll cover. We'll have a look on different topics, obviously. First of all, we'll look at architecture as a bottleneck, how it is in the moment in many scenarios. Then we'll reframe complexity, not as a problem, but as competitive advantage and why it is like a superpower in B2B. We'll compare monolithic and modular approaches. We'll look at what it really means to move from silos to clean data flow. I'll introduce an overview of a 4-layer blueprint for a future-ready B2B stack. And finally, we'll talk about how to modernize without breaking everything. So it's all about structure, not about features or something. And we'll have a look on all the questions which are asked via the Q&A or via the chat after that as well. So let's step in. B2B complexity is not a bug. It's the result of negotiated relationships, operational depth, customer specificity. Your complexity reflects the value creation. So it's part of the business simply. First of all, we want to get a short status quo and insights from you. For that, we prepared a small poll. We'd like to ask, how would you describe your current B2B architecture maturity? So we'll start a poll now. Would be great if you can give us some insights to have a look how the current situation is for you. Okay. Let's have a look on that later on, but it's great to have the first status quo of you guys. Thanks a lot. First of all, let's see how current situation is. Buyers today expect real-time commerce. They expect autonomous ordering, hybrid journeys, personalized portals, accurate pricing, individual pricing, of course, reliable availability. But while expectations accelerate, many internal system landscapes remain fragmented. ERP is on the one side, PIM on another island, CRM is somewhere else, commerce layered on top and somehow tries to handle all of that. Fragmented systems erode speed. They erode margins and over time they erode trust from the customer as well, which is especially in B2B one of the most important things. Today we are not just asking where's friction, we are asking where does structural limits scale. And let's state that clearly, growth isn't limited by demand or complexity, it's limited by architecture in many cases. Complexity is simply needed for B2B businesses. And buyers are active. Digital adoption is increasing. Complexity as well, and complexity should not be the enemy, because B2B complexity reflects, as already mentioned, negotiated relationships, negotiated pricings, sophisticated logic, structured buyer processes, and it's simply necessary and needed. When systems can't evolve at the pace of the market, scale slows down as well, and that would be a really bad one. When growth slows, companies often say, we need more leads, sales must move faster, we simply need more revenue, conversion must improve, we need more automation to be more efficient. But structurally, the deeper problem looks in many cases different. Systems don't communicate cleanly. Data ownership is unclear. Every change becomes expensive, becomes slow. You lose a lot of agility. Innovation depends on vendor release cycles. And when volume increases, data flows begin to break or to struggle. The bottleneck is in many cases here structural topic. So buyer demand in general is accelerating and increasing. Expectations are rising. Digital touchpoints are multiplying. But if architecture is rigid, the system resists. Workarounds increase, manual corrections and manual effort increase, Change cycles lengthen. Growth is no longer constrained by market opportunity, but by the structure and by the architecture, which leads to a lot of frustration and loss of agility. Let's come to why B2B and the complexity of B2B is more or less the superpower and the big advantage, or why it creates value. B2B complexity exists for a reason. So, as already mentioned, we have negotiated terms, tiered pricing, customer-specific assortments, approval hierarchies, so buying processes really, face-to-face consulting, and it's all about relationships. So obviously, and I think all of you know, even the best platform can't completely replace a face-to-face discussion or face-to-face relationship within B2B, but it should support you. And the problem is not this existing complexity, all of you know. The problem is when systems cannot support you as they should do. And many organizations react by trying to simplify the business again. They reduce this flexibility. They reduce this complexity even in the digital way. They standardize pricing again. They push exceptions again to the offline channel. But what happens in that case is sales steps back in, the customer bypasses digital channels and gets back to phone, email, or even fax, I don't know. The manual the manual work increases again a lot, efficiency lowers down, differentiation shrinks, complexity doesn't disappear. It just moves out of the system and back into the people. So the business and the complexity of the business stays, but we again push it back to the more manual effort work and not the automized and efficient digital ones. And yeah, to sum it up, complexity is neutral, but it becomes friction when systems are rigid. It becomes differentiation when architecture is flexible. You know your customers best. You know your process and the ones of your customers best. The architecture should support you within your knowledge and within your specific processes. The architecture must support what makes you unique, not suppress it. That brings us to the structural question: how should systems be built to absorb this complexity instead of stopping it or fighting it, more or less? That's why we are talking about monolithic architectures versus modular ones and what the advantages of that are. When we first have a look on central monolithic architectures, which we see in many organizations, commerce is built as one central block. So you have one block, more or less, where pricing logic is in, where the checkout is in, where ERP integrations or functionalities are in, processes like approvals are in, content is in, customer data is in, and that's all really closely and tightly coupled. You have one release cycle, you have shared dependencies. This feels simple in the beginning because you have more or less all out of one hand, but over the time, coupling increases, dependencies multiply, and customization grows, but it gets even much more difficult to implement. And what that leads to is that when everything is coupled in one, nothing is more or less flexible because you have all that close to each other that you can't simply individualize due to your processes. As mentioned, when everything is coupled, nothing is flexible. Small changes become really large projects, which are really expensive for you as merchant, which take a lot of time, which leads to a loss of agility. Updates create a lot of fear. Testing cycles become long. Vendor dependencies are increasing. Monoliths can work, but they don't evolve easily. So you can use them. In many cases, they are historically grown and still used. But anyway, they can't evolve that agile and fast as other systems can. And in an environment where innovation cycles shorten, that becomes a structural constraint, and that's really critical. Even analysts report from that shift. So they see that many more B2B interactions will be digital already now and in future as well. Digital interactions are becoming the norm. Buyers expect autonomy. Gen Z and millennials now influence the procurement decisions. The market is not slowing down, but architecture must match that speed and go through that. Why should it be modular? We have here now examples, ERP, PIM, and CRM, for example. And all these systems are optimized for specific domains and specific tasks. ERP manages transactions and financial truth. PIM manages product enrichment and structure. CRM manages customer relationships and data. They should remain strong in their domains. That's why they exist, right? The issues arises when we try to make one system to take over all of their tasks. So systems are completely optimized for their referring requirements, and that's what they should work on. Around these core systems, new services emerge constantly. AI services, search engines, marketing automations, analytics. These are evolving quickly, and for these ones, there are vendors as well in the market, and these systems are optimized for their referring requirements as well. A modular structure allows you to integrate and replace these components independently without replatforming your entire stack. So you are able to use the perfect solution for each task, more or less. How can that look like? As an example, in a modular architecture, core systems remain stable, as we see here, ERP, PIM, CRM system, for example. A flexible commerce layer orchestrates, and all of that, as well as the services, which we see on the right side here, are connected through flexible APIs. Innovation becomes additive, not disruptive. And that's how you can stay flexible and fast and agile. What modularity enables? It enables speed, it enables agility. You can have a faster time to change. You can stay independent with your innovation and independent from a vendor, which in other cases delivers everything out of one end. It reduces risk and dependencies, as already mentioned. You are safer to upgrade single components instead of the whole stack. You can use perfectly fitting systems and choose new ones if your system doesn't fit anymore. You have a lower TCO because you need less custom rebuilds. You can still use the already existing landscape and simply add new components to it. You can faster innovate. Focused vendors innovate already faster, specifically on their system because they have the focus simply. And you can have faster experimentation, easier integration of future ideas and processes via third-party services, for example, which can simply be added via the API. And it gives you control over your whole stack. Let's make this tangible. So what does this especially look like in the practice? A manufacturer launches a new B2B portal in this scenario without touching anything of the ERP because you simply add it to your landscape. A distributor replaces search without rebuilding the commerce layer. A global brand rolls out region-specific headless front ends, completely independent. Change happens at the right layer, not across the entire system landscape. And that's, again, what makes you really agile, fast, and innovative. So the key question shifts a bit from which platform should I buy? So which platform can do the most for me out of one hand, to how should our architecture be structured? And structure determines the scalability. And all of that should focus on the unified buyer experience. So each system has its own ownership, and everything should focus on your processes and your customers' processes. Now we already talked about, okay, different system which have different ownerships, but of course it's really important that these systems are communicating to each other. That's why we talk about how we can come from silos to a flow of data. Step back, clarity of ownership is the foundation. So that's what we already discussed more or less. Every system has its own tasks, and that's what they are specified on. For example, the ERP system owns the pricing logic, the availabilities, the invoicing, the financial processes, more or less, delivery rules. The PIM owns the product structure, the product data, the extended product data, obviously. The CRM owns customer context, customer permissions, roles, interactions, communications, and first really important point is that these responsibilities are clear. When the responsibilities begin to overlap, then friction can begin really fast and easy. In a clean setup, data flows naturally via the already mentioned APIs. Product data, for example, from the PIM system. You have pricing and availability from the ERP system. You have roles and permissions from the CRM system. And you have one commerce layer which orchestrates all these data and processes. And all of that should focus, as already mentioned, on the buyer experience, which can be on different sales channels. So obviously, in many cases, we have the standard browser-based storefront, so the online shop more or less. But obviously, there are different more sales channels which can be used. ECI interfaces, ODI interfaces, or marketplaces, for example, which can be used and can be connected to the central commerce engine which orchestrates. When data doesn't flow, we simply have a big issue. When flow breaks, symptoms appear. Nightly sync jogs, double maintenance, pricing inconsistencies, quote rework. Many of these things we see here are not IT problems, but they are problems of the architecture itself. Integration is obviously in those modular architectures one of the most important things. Buyers should never feel where one system stops and another begins. Integration should be invisible, so all things should focus on the customer journey. System friction hits revenue before it hits IT. Lower reorder rates, abandoned quotes, manual corrections, longer sales cycles. Integration is a growth topic, not a technical hygiene task. It is a must-have. And as mentioned, most important thing on this one is your buyers should never feel where one system stops and others begin. B2B complexity, B2B brings complexity simply from the business perspective. We built a B2B blueprint, a 4-layer model for that, which I want to show to you. We see here our 4-layer model. High-performing B2B companies separate stability from flexibility and have clear ownerships, as we already saw before. In layer 1, we have our core data systems. Layer 2, on base of that, is flexible commerce engine. Layer 3, composable services, and layer 4, experience layer. We have a stable core, we have flexible orchestration, and we have composable innovation, which should lead to agility and to fast times to change. Let's go through these layers. First of all is the layer 1, the core data systems. These systems are your single point of truth. In many cases, it's the ERP, PIM, CRM system, where you really have your single point of truth, where you have the data you can really rely on, and which are the leading systems for all the corresponding data and processes. Again, as a repeat, it's important that the ownership of these systems is clear and that they don't overlap. In layer 2, we see the flexible commerce engine. This layer handles business rules, workflow orchestration, role logic, multi-sales channel management, automations. This is more or less the layer which directly consumes data from the layer 1 systems we already saw, and this is where adaptability lives. It needs to be flexible because it needs to adapt to new pricing models, to support expansion regional with new sales channels, react to any kind of innovation, and be flexible enough to connect to any third-party service you want to use for innovation or for testing around. If you embed all of this inside, for example, the ERP system, changes becomes often really, really expensive. If you isolate it in a flexible commerce layer, innovation accelerates a lot. In the layer 3, we have the composable innovation layer. This layer contains, for example, AI services, marketing automation, analytics, subscriptions. That's where you can add the additional services. This is where innovation happens. These services should be plug and play in many cases. You should be able to add or replace them without replatforming. You should be fast in that one. You should be able to test around and to go new ways you want to have in your business. Layer 4 is the experience layer. That's the layer where buyers interact. This layer bundles all customer-facing components. For example, headless front ends, any other front ends, different UIs, EDI interfaces, OCI interfaces, differentiations of different brands, regions, languages, etc. And this layer, as already mentioned before, can contain more than just one module. So in many cases, not only one sales channel is the right one, but it's the use of different ones, which are specifically the perfect ones for your customers and your business. As mentioned, headless front ends, OCI interfaces, or we mentioned here the native app, for example, are just examples. So there are many more out there. I think many of you know some more, which might be the right ones, especially for your business. But experience only works if structure underneath is solid. The layered structure enables faster change, safer upgrades, AI and service readiness, cross-channel consistency, and this is how B2B leaders scale through complexity. So here we see the full blueprint. We added the layer 3 services beside the layer 2 because, that are additional services which should be able to be added like every time, really fast and agile. And layer 4, all of that which goes into the direction of the customer itself. But how to handle those projects and how to go into that topic without breaking like the whole thing you are already working on. It's important to go through that step by step. First of all, identify where does pricing originate? Where is product truth maintained? Where do manual corrections happen? Where do sync jobs exist? Which systems owns what? That's what we already saw in the slides before. It's really, really important that you have the ownership of all these systems clear and that they don't overlap. So you need to have one single point of truth for all of these things. Then clean the product data. So you need to stabilize your core data. Make sure data in core systems of the layer 1 are clean and true. Make ownership for data and processes clear. That's what we already saw in the first step as well. But work on that so that the single point of truth have the right data and the clean data they need. Then, introduce flexible commerce engine. So find a solution which fits best for you, which is flexible enough and meet your e-commerce requirements. Keep base systems untouched and connect via the APIs. So move the rules into the commerce layer, keep the ERP untouched, and decouple these systems from each other and connect via the API interfaces. Then replace batch things, use clean interfaces, use real-time things where it is needed. In other hands, you can do that from time to time, but not every time like batch things. Then higher the efficiency and automate repeatable processes like, for example, quote approvals, reorder workflows, role-based logics, pricing validations. If no services are existing there yet, add them to the architecture via API interfaces again. And when you have all of that done and have a platform there, then innovate. Think in iterations, and if needed, add composable services like AI, for example. Due to focus of vendors on single modules, this is in many cases already done by vendors. So vendors are already focusing on innovating their systems, and with this modular architecture, you are the one which gets the best results out of this innovation from the different vendors you are working with. Innovation comes last when the solid base is there. That's the really important thing. So don't throw all these innovation ideas already in within the process, of course, as ideas for the backlog always, but don't stop implementation of the base for already starting innovation. But innovation comes last. Do it when the solid base is there. And what is really important, old and new can coexist. Start small, prove the value, and then scale what you learned. Controlled evolution, not disruptive transformation with a lot of risk. Do it step by step. And if you have already something there, then keep using it and make the process coexisting. So we already talked a lot now. Scaling through complexity is not about reducing systems. It's about structuring them correctly and having the architecture clean. The companies that win in complex B2B markets are not the ones with fewer systems, but they are the ones whose systems are built to evolve. Thanks a lot for your time. On this slide, you can scan the QR code and download our B2B e-commerce compass. Hopefully that works out well for you. And before we come to the Q&A section, maybe there are some questions which already popped up. We would like to have a little feedback of you guys. So maybe you can answer on the poll, which we will send out now, and give us a small feedback on how helpful this session was for you. I'm really looking for your feedback. If any question comes up afterwards, or you want to get into discussion or something, you can find my contact data here as well. Get in touch with me via mail, via LinkedIn, simply call, whatever fits best for you. Thanks a lot for your time.